Very touchy dilek to everybody. I think touchy dilek is better than good morning, good evening, good afternoon, because I don't know who is where, what time. We are all on different time zone. So I think touchy dilek is the safest for all of us. And so, yeah, I was requested by all the Palpung centers in Europe to give a talk, or rather, let's say, teaching. So that is how I came up with this idea of giving a teaching on the 8 verses of mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa. So today we will go through this. Now, so before we start the main text itself, I want to go through some important backgrounds, etc. So the main practice of the Kadamba tradition were very much stressed on the practice such as the mind training. It shows us the importance of training our mind. We all, beings, irrespective of what kind we are, from where we are, how we are, etc., we all have one common ground, and that is to be free of any sufferings and to accomplish happiness. So this is the common ground in all of us. Now, this is the base to all our day-to-day activities and living. Now, how much we accomplish, this is a different matter. Some of us have higher level of happiness than some, and some of us have higher level of suffering than happiness. And each individual different from the other. Now we know that state of happiness or suffering does not just arise from the empty space. If it did, then even flowers should be able to bloom in the empty space. But such things does not happen. We understand that for everything to happen, there has to be a cause and condition to experience a result of that. Like in order to get a beautiful flower to bloom in our garden, we need to get a good quality seed and then sow the seed in perfect conditions in our garden and nurture it with water, sunlight, etc. for a period of time. And then finally, we will be blessed with a beautiful flower. So in the same way, what we experience is also the result of what we have sowed in the past and what we will experience in the future is the result of what we sow in the present. This is called karma, cause and effect in Buddhism. And actually, it has nothing to do with, any religion or Buddhism as such. It is the truth of relative existence. We all are subject to this, whether we are believer or non-believer in any beliefs. Now, in relation to this, if we sow a good seed of action, we will experience the benefit of it in a happy experience or joy. On the other hand, if we sow the seed of bad action, we will experience its result in an experience of suffering. This is the law of karmic cause and effect. Now, how can we sow the seed of good or bad actions? We can do this through our three doors, as we say. The three doors are our body, speech, and mind. Any one or combination of these results in our action of good or bad. Out of these three doors or action, the mind is the dominant character and the rest two are secondary. If the state of the mind is positive, the action of speech and physical action are usually positive. But if the state of mind is negative, even if the action of speech and physical action seems to be or appear positive, it will affect in a negative result. For example, a good intention of a mother towards its child, trying to bring up her child with good qualities, try to pass on good qualities. In this effort, her mind is positive, wanting to give the best, wanting to transmit the best qualities in a child. But the child, being a child, sometimes can get carried away and not so much emphasis on good qualities, and perform certain actions which may be harmful for the child itself. Then the mother, in order to accomplish this transmission of good quality to the child, sometimes have to take certain actions, like being strict, physically disciplining the child. Through speech, maybe using some harsh words, to make the child follow the instructions. So like this. So in this case, though the physical action or the speech seems a little bit negative, because the mind, state of mind of the mother is genuine, caring, love for the child, wanting to benefit the child, so that way, then the result is positive. The child benefits from this. So that way, it is positive action. Though the physical and speech may seem little negative at that moment. In the same way, on the other side, a bad intention with a good appearance of physical action or speech not necessarily result in a good result. For example, let's say, this is just example, because you hear so many, like doctors. When doctors become doctor, they become doctor to benefit people, to serve the people. So this is the the goal or the vow of a doctor. But sometimes one gets carried away, and though the action may seem like helping a patient, and though the speech sounds like helping the person, by explaining to a patient, oh, this is wrong, that is wrong, and you need to do this, you need to do that, and prescribing them so many different kind of medicines, different kind of treatments, etc. But if all those are really not necessary, because if the doctor's intention is to make money, is to gain out of this suffering patient, make the best of this person through prescribing so many unnecessary medicine, so many unnecessary treatment, then that results in a negative result. And surely, as time passes, then it gets exposed. So many cases happening. Even in India, some time back, there were so many cases of such, where all these kind of doctors were exposed in the media by people like this. So sooner or later, they will be exposed. And even if not, in their own conscience, definitely, I'm sure they know what they are doing is not right. And as I said, the law of karmic cause and condition or effect definitely will catch up, so that way. So though it looks and sounds positive, not necessarily results in positive. So that is an example how the mind is the dominant character, and physical and speech is the secondary. It follows the state of the mind. So now it is very clear to us that the state of our mind is most important for the experience of happiness and eradication of suffering. So this is why practices such as the mind training are received so highly by the past masters, and also practiced by the present masters, and will be practiced by the future masters. So these practices are very profound practices. Now, when we say mind training, we must understand one thing very clearly. We are not trying to create something new or brainwash ourselves with some new ideas. Actually here, we are trying to develop the clarity of recognizing and realizing the genuine innate quality that we all beings possess from beginningless time as a nature. So we could actually say purifying the mind instead of training the mind. Of course, training the mind is widely used, and of course it is not wrong. One could take it in two sense. One is to training, adapting your mind to the positive action like this. But a genuine, deeper understanding of training the mind practice means this, purification practice. So this very understanding gives us the hope and courage of being able to achieve the goal of the how do you say, achieve this goal of the virtuous mind, or the innate quality to manifest at all times, which is the genuine source to happiness and eradication of suffering. If I give you an example here, because the quality of the mind is virtuous, perfect, positive, so on and so forth, we can manifest this, we can realize this. But at the moment, because of our confusions of mental afflictions, such as ego, jealousy, attachment, hatred, greed, ignorance, etc., we are obscured from experiencing the genuine quality of our nature. Because we have for so long been habituated with these negative qualities, it is very easy to fall into the trap of these ignorance, relatively. Again, if I give you an example of this, a drunk person under the influence of alcohol is ignorant of his action, but his true quality is not the drunk state, the drunk state of his being. This is just a relative state. His genuine state is clear mind, a state of his being. That is his genuine state. But due to his habit to drinking, it is difficult for him to come out of it, or difficult for him to come out of the state of drunkenness. But on the other hand, because his true being is not drunken state, but the sober, clear state, if he gives up to drinking of alcohol, he can most certainly become clear, mindful person, because that is the reality, that is the true state of this person. So in this way, because our state of mind ultimately is perfect, free of all stains of negative characteristics, we have the complete assurance of achieving the everlasting peace. So we can be assured, we can have great, confidence. There's no need to be hopeless. So for this, as I told you, we have to gradually purify these relative temporary stains of ignorance, such as attachment, hatred, ego, etc., which are the core conditions to our experience of sufferings. Now, in doing this, we have practices like the mind training, which are of many kinds. Here today, I am going to go through the mind training put down by the great Kadampa master called Geshe Langri Thangpa. And these practices are called the 8 verses of mind training. As the title says, it has only 8 verses. So it is relatively easy to remember. And so one can practice them in one's day-to-day life. Now, I always stress on practice because it is only by applying the teachings in our day-to-day life that we can really see change in ourselves and as a result see change in our day-to-day life and in the surroundings for the better. I heard something, I don't know. So in order to apply the teachings in our day-to-day life, it should be simple and easy, so we can make them a part of our daily life. I always say, keep your practice simple and genuine so that it gives you the maximum ability to incorporate and inculcate in your daily life. And that is how you will be able to benefit the most. So I always stress on this. So with this in mind, I chose this particular subject and the teaching today, and hopefully you all can cultivate this practice in your daily life, and by doing so, take the first step towards changing the actions of our 3 doors from an ordinary worldly being to a noble being of great value to the humanity and all beings as a whole. Now, a little history of Geshe Langri Thangpa. I think is important to know, since you are going through his text, the text compiled by him. I'm sure some of you already know, but for those who don't know, he is a master of the Kadampa tradition, and he was born in 1054. That's how you say, right? And passed away in around 1123 at the age of, I think, 69 years. His actual name was, Dorje Singhe, but he was known as Langri Thangpa because he founded a monastery in a place called Langri, the Langtang, Langtang. So he came to be known as the master, the Kadampa master Langri Thangpa. So from a place called Langri Thang, so a person from Langri Thang is called Langri Thangpa. So the Pa makes a person from that area. So his name was given with the relation to the place where he resided, because he built a monastery there. His activity, manifested there mainly. The Kadampa tradition came from the the great master Atisha Dipankara, where the lineage of the profound views and the vast practice became merged into a single lineage of the Kadampa tradition. Atisha's one of his principal disciple was Dromtempa, and his principal student was Geshe Potowa. Then Geshe Sharawa and Geshe Langri Thangpa were the principal disciples of Geshe Potowa. Geshe Langri Thangpa put down the practices of the mind training in 8 verses, known as the 8 verses of mind training, and taught this short text. And though it is kind of short, it comprises the main essence of all the practices of the Kadamba tradition. It is also said that the great master of the Kadamba tradition, Geshe Chekawa, was famous, who famously put down the 7 points of mind training. As a young boy, overheard someone reciting the 8 verses of the mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa, and this made such a huge impact in him that he turned to the path of Dharma, and since then never looked back, and became one of the greatest enlightened masters of the Kadamba tradition, and liberated countless beings from the sufferings of samsara. So here today, I sincerely pray that may all of us, having this opportunity to make a connection to this profound teaching of the 8 verses of mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa, can sow the seed of enlightenment in us, and bless us to take the first step towards enlightenment for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, following the footsteps of great masters like Chekawa Yeshidorji and so many other great masters. Now, coming back to the mind training, as I told you earlier, here we are training the mind to discover, develop, and manifest the innate qualities of goodness, the primordial wisdom in each and every one of us. So in other words, we are trying to develop our bodhicitta, which is the innate quality of goodness, or also known as the Buddha nature. Now, in doing this, there are 2 methods. First is training to develop relative bodhicitta, and then secondly, the development of ultimate bodhicitta. As I explained to you earlier, in order to purify something, and there has to be an essence that remains after the purification process. So when we purify our mind, the pure essence that remains is ultimate bodhicitta. And this is revealed through the practice of purification methods, which in this case is the relative bodhicitta practice. The ultimate bodhicitta is the goal of our relative bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is non-dualistic, and relative bodhicitta is dualistic. Relative bodhicitta is dualistic because we take on the sufferings of others and we give our happiness onto others, etc., etc. So this is a dualistic practice. Ultimate bodhicitta is non-dualistic, and usually it's practiced, in doing like meditation. So the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta is done by resting in meditation. Here in the 8 verses of mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa, the last 2 lines of the 8 verses, the last 2 lines of the 8th verse is the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta. Rest are the practice of the relative bodhicitta. So this is a kind of a rough background of the such practice, from where it came about and how it benefits, etc. So now, if we go into the main practice itself, so the text I'm using here is this one. So I don't know, it just happened to be in my computer, so I got stuck with this text. So I'm not sure which one you all are using, but anyways, it's the same. So the 8 verses of the mind training. So now the first, the verse. So it says in Tibetan that it says, "Dani semjen tamje la yijin norbu le ha e tenjo dubi samba e padu chepran zimbarsho." So thinking of all sentient beings as being more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, with the intention of achieving the supreme goal, may I at all times hold them dear to my heart. So here, this verse emphasizes the importance of cultivating the righteousness or right attitude towards others, and valuing the others and cherishing their well-being. So usually, we are habituated to, holding ourselves as more dear than others. This is our habit. When we think of ourselves, there is a natural attachment to self and well-being of oneself. But when we think of others, instead of thought of well-being of others, we have attachment towards them. We have jealousy, ego, hatred, etc. We associate that way with our mental afflictions. So normally we have that kind of habit when we don't train in practices like exchanging of self to others. But through these practice, we develop the practice of bodhisattvas path and train in developing our bodhicitta. So this is how we exchange, the practice of giving and taking, or exchanging oneself to others, etc. So it is because of others, that we are precious qualities which benefit ourselves. My internet unstable. I'm okay. You can hear me, right? Okay. So now here, when it says, that thinking of all sentient beings as being more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. So comparison between the beings, mother sentient beings, and a wish-fulfilling jewel. Now it is believed that a wish-fulfilling jewel, has the quality of granting you, wish, the relative wishes. But in order to uh, be granted the wishes, you have to keep the wish-fulfilling jewel clean, nice, look after it, and make offerings to it, etc., etc. So if you do that, and then it can grant you wishes like the wealth, fame, etc. So these kind of relative wishes. So, and here then comparison to sentient beings. So same way, sentient beings, if we don't learn to cherish them and utilize them in our path to liberation, then if we just forget them, not use them, and then it is like the wish-fulfilling jewel which you don't look after, then doesn't fulfill your wish. So same way, sentient beings also cannot really make any difference to you if there is no effort of this connection. But on the other hand, if you make this connection with the sentient beings, then it really has great qualities, precious qualities. It says here, it has the precious qualities of, giving you the, giving you the ability of the best result. Tong-len means the most meaningful, the most precious result. And what is most precious result is enlightenment, complete liberation from suffering. So that is the most precious. Like wish-fulfilling jewel is able to give you wealth, but wealth is temporary. No matter how much wealth you have, one day it will, cease to exist. Even if it doesn't cease to exist, one day you will die. And when you die, you cannot take the wealth with you. It is left behind. The time, too much wealth left behind becomes the source of only sometimes very, during your lifetime, everyone very good, very nice. The minute, you leave behind a lot of wealth and then you pass away, then that wealth becomes the source of so many arguments, cases in the family, making everybody so unhappy. So not necessarily, these kind of wealth can shower happiness. Same way, fame. Fame also is the same. Cannot give you complete happiness. First, you think it will give you some happiness, but the more fame you have, the more responsibility you have. The more responsibility you have, the more people are there to criticize you. So then you have all kind of problems, all kind of sufferings. You see all the famous people. So many of them rely on different kind of temporary tranquilizers. Like what do you say, sleeping pills and all these kind of things. Because they are going through lots of mental problems, though they have fame, though they have wealth, so all these, these kind of benefits aren't able to give you really happiness, lasting happiness. But on the other hand, enlightenment, total freedom from these kind of suffering, can give you the ultimate, happiness, because enlightenment is total eradication of the root cause of these sufferings, which are the mental afflictions, the self-grasping, onto, the reality, the of self, etc. So dangzin, so it, when one is able to overcome or realize, then one overcomes all this. And then that is when one is completely enlightened or free from all confusions, free from all ignorance. So, and how can we achieve that? How can we eradicate, or how can we achieve this state? As I told you, suffering arises from mental afflictions. Too much mental afflictions, too much mental confusions, too much grasping onto the self, attachment. Then all this suffering arises from there. This is the root cause of all suffering. So we have to eradicate this. So we have to lessen this, I. We have to lessen these ego, jealousy, hatred, etc. And the mother sentient beings are the tools, is the precious gem through which we can do this. In order to overcome anger, we have to have a source to which we need to practice. If there is no mother sentient beings who generate anger in you, then there's no way of overcoming your anger. If there is no beings irritating you, there is no source to practice your patience. If there is no source to practice your generosity, then you cannot practice generosity. So like this, all the 6 paramita practices, so you need a source to practice on. So mother sentient beings are like that. They give you the opportunity to practice and develop the qualities which are in you and purify these afflictions that obscure these qualities. So that is why mother sentient beings are so precious. And Buddha said that the best form of accumulation of merit is the practice of loving kindness, compassion. And if there is no source to practice your loving kindness, compassion, then how do you practice? How do you accumulate that merit? So even for accumulation of merit, mother sentient beings give you the opportunity to do that. So so precious. Then even in ordinary day-to-day life, the development of or the dependent on others is so important. Other beings are so important for your well-being. Now very much visible, especially in these times. Normally we think we are self-sustainable, but when the times of lockdown came, you had to be alone, separated from everybody. Then you realize how much suffering, when you're alone. You cannot get this, you cannot get that, you wish for this but cannot, you are helpless. So now we can see how much dependent we are on everybody. So many people, depending on so many people, so many conditions around. Our survival and our well-being is evolving around so many, dependent on so many. So even in our day-to-day life, so the mother sentient beings, the other beings are so precious. It is so necessary for us. So these things are very clear. Then in the context of like it says, our enemies, then they are the greatest source of one's. They are the greatest jewel, wish fulfilling jewel, because what is enemy? Enemy is somebody which really test your qualities. They bring in all these weak qualities, or what is it, all these negative qualities in you. anger, irritation, etc. And all the faults in you. They bring out all the faults in you. So normally these faults, these negative qualities are so good at hiding. They're so good at tricking you that you are unable to see them. But these, such people, they are very skilled at bringing your faults out. So through their skill, you benefit so much. You can see very clearly your, these downfalls of yours, which have been the cause of your suffering for, so many lifetimes, and even in this lifetime, continuing to experience so many suffering because of these, negative qualities. So understanding these, then they become so precious to you. Then you really learn to cherish them. You really learn to cherish their existence. It's being introduced to such. It's a great honor. It's a great opportunity for you, to develop. So that is how a practitioner of mind training sees and trains, and learns to how do you say, learns to train the mind that way. Like in the great master Shantideva, he has said, that da de jenchi dungal tha yanda jeor majena sangji ni ne mitujing korwa naya dewa me. So when translated, my own translation, so I'm not sure how much to the point, but the meaning is, if you not aspire for the exchange of your happiness with the sufferings of others, then enlightenment is not possible. And not only that, even relative happiness in the samsara is not possible. So as I explained to you already, it's very clear. So Shantideva also states that. So knowing this, then the first verse, we understand now, that why mother sentient beings are so precious. They are so precious because they can grant us the ultimate wish, that is total freedom from suffering, the enlightenment. So therefore, it says, recognizing this, then all times, we must hold them dear to one's heart. So hold them with great honor and great respect. Then now the second verse, it says, Kang tu su tang zhopitse, dani kunle men tashin, yen la samba tabayi, chok tu jebar zimbrisho. So whenever I associate with whomsoever, may I see myself lower than all others, and from the depth of my heart, dearly hold others as superior. So that is the second verse. So here, this second verse explains more a specific way how do we value others. We should not value others by kind of looking down on them, and kind of with the notion that we are superior to them. So rather, if possible, to view oneself as lower than others with humility. So that is how one should train the mind. In the second verse. So here, it is important when we interact with others, we do not do so out of arrogance and self-importance. One should relate to others with this, with how to say, genuine humility, with great respect. But At the same time, we should not misunderstand, that I am, when it says here that, I see myself lower than others, and and etc. etc. So sometimes people have some problem with these, So it is like they have some kind of fear of I don't know, inferior complex, or I don't know how to say. So basically, very negative kind of, they think it's very negative. So like this, so of course, it doesn't mean, that kind of, you don't look down upon yourself with that kind of thing, like saying, I am the lowest, I cannot do anything, I have no ability, so like this kind of, and then putting yourself down this way, and then feeling very dejected, feeling very desperate, feeling very, how do you say, so that way, stressed out that way, and then so that shouldn't be, it doesn't mean that. That is, if you, that is like we say, one form of laziness, right? So it is not, that is a kind of laziness. Like one laziness, of course, we know, our normal laziness, right? What we know. And then one laziness is having the wrong view, not having the right view. And then one laziness is, saying, I cannot do this, I cannot practice, because it's too hard. I cannot be like the, great masters, or they are, of higher, how do you say, capable. I cannot do this. I have no this ability, or I have no time. I have no, wisdom to encompass all this kind of intelligence. In these kind of practices. So that is, self, degrading oneself. So not that. That is not here. What it says here doesn't mean that kind of thing. As we know, we recognize and understand very clearly our nature, as I explained in the beginning. We all by nature are, perfect. We have this potential. Buddha Shakyamuni, his nature and our nature is 100% the same. But only thing is, Buddha realized that and able to manifest that. We, at the moment, unable to realize this because of our ignorance. So that is the difference. Otherwise, we have the full ability, capability, and the character to achieve enlightenment like Buddha Shakyamuni. So therefore, there's no space to feel any kind of dejected, or any kind of this kind of low esteem. So definitely, there's no reason to feeling that. Yeah. So with that kind of confidence, with the right outlook of wisdom, and then the behavior, or the of great loving kindness, compassion for others, with great humility, respect for others, then we practice these. Like again, in the the Chunju, the Shantideva says, the Jigden Thana Sewa Kang Tang Jigtan Dunghal Chinye Yochurba Tekun Datu Zimba Lechuna and Dechin Teku Dala Chishiksha. So all the harms in the universe, all the fear and sufferings one experiences, all this is brought about by the clinging onto the idea of I and mine, so on. So then what is the use of such a great harmful evil? So now very clear. So therefore he says, so all this sufferings brought about by these afflictions, and these afflictions created through this ignorance, and the ignorance of this clinging on to the the notion of the reality of a self, and then this create then me and mine, then you and yours, so all this, and then around this everything, all the worldly dharma, which creates so many suffering, so that is, so what is the use of having such a great, uh, uh, how do you say, great cause of suffering, it says, so yeah. Then also, there's a saying that the wealth of wisdom cannot be sustained on on a the, what do you say, on a, like a ball of ego, so so like a ball, no matter how much you pour water, it cannot sustain the water, right? Everything will everything will go out, so same way, if you have great ego, the self, ego, then it is like a ball, it has no space to accumulate any any wisdom, then there's no room for improvement anymore. Supposing somebody is genuinely like doing some practice in the beginning or doing something and improving greatly, then people start to say, oh, you're doing very well, and this like that. Then if not careful, if one thinks, oh, I'm great, I'm really doing well, everybody is saying this, now I'm better than anybody, then if you have this kind of ego, this kind of thing, then that's the biggest enemy to one's growth, because no more, then you cannot grow anymore. You become static at that point. The minute somebody says something, next time you straight away get angry, upset. What does he know? I know more. And then when you say I know more than him, then there's no more space to take in any more any more information or any more wisdom. So you are stuck. So like that. So here, difference between so here in this stanza or the verse, then the difference between genuine loving kindness, compassion, and pity. Pity is important to understand, because as I told you, many people have confusion in this. So I want to try and explain this a little bit more. The pity comes about with through pity we feed our ego and defilements. Compassion and loving kindness destroys our ego and defilement. There's difference. So when we do something for others, we do through genuine loving kindness, compassion. Loving kindness, compassion develops through respect. When you see other beings having the same Buddha nature as you, as Buddha, Shakyamuni, and all the enlightened masters, then you have genuine respect to them, because they have such high, great, pure quality. Then, but in spite of having these, they are so lost in the the worldly dharma, and under the influence of confusion, afflictive emotions, unnecessarily suffering so much, then you genuinely develop kindness, loving kindness towards them. This is genuine loving kindness, compassion. Through respect you develop, recognizing their quality. Through that respect you develop genuine concern for them, to free them from this this confusion. So that is so that is a loving kindness, compassion. So this way, then you are not thinking you are greater than them. In fact, you are doing service to all beings. You are like taking care, service to everybody. Well, on the other hand, pity is, you think you are greater than other, and then you look down on others. Others, these people are, less, how do you say, intelligent than me. I'm, more intelligent than them. I'm higher being than them. So like this, and then you look down and trying, and you do things. So that is, you are feeding your own ego. You are feeding your own these kind of, so you are feeding your own defilements. So that is not eradicating of suffering. That is the development of, it creates this more suffering. So like this. So here, then again, the in the 37 practices of a bodhisattva, and by Gyalton, he says, that though famous and prominent, someone to whom others bow though you amass the riches like the god of wealth, to see that worldly splendors have no essence, and thus to be without arrogance is the practice of a bodhisattva. And so all great masters, so they have mentioned this. So that way, so if I give you an example of, when one is able to, dearly hold others more superior to one, then it also, even in our day-to-day life, it, kind of benefits us greatly in, let's say, for example, someone who you look up to, so someone who you look up to and cherish and think that that person is greater than you, more wise than you, like this. So such a person, when these people bring fault in you or kind of say something that, kind of brings out the negative qualities in you, it doesn't really harm you or hurt you. You in fact are able to absorb that and then look to try and change and develop yourself. On the other hand, somebody who you think is equal to you or somebody who you think is inferior to you says something to you, you are very much susceptible to misjudgment, able to straight away it gets to your nerve. Maybe they don't mean anything bad, but straight away you will get hurt with little words, way of little words or the way of saying things, you get upset and easy to hurt you, easy to bring out these negative qualities in you, so that is, so if you are able to take the 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 lower seat, or how to say, more humble, then the benefits are very much clear here. So that way, if you are able to see all beings with higher respect, and then you are able to practice these of give and take also much better, with more genuineness. So it helps in so many ways. So the first stanza or the first verse shows we have to practice to attain enlightenment, and the second verse shows how to practice, by using what method, etc. What time is it? Okay. Yeah. Now the third stanza. So it says, it says, Cholam kuntu rangjula pachin yomong jemata daje marung shebina zentab dongne dokparcho. So in all my activities, by examining my mental continuum, and as soon as afflictive emotions arise, which are the pernicious to self and others, or which are harmful to self and others, may I forcefully confront and avert them. So here, the third verse shows that in the process of the practicing, the cherishing of others, etc., and then there will be obstacles which take the form of the hatred, frustration, a sense of competitiveness, and then so envying towards others' success, etc. So when these afflictions arise, and then these harm both oneself and others. So applying the right antidote to dealing with these obstacles is important. So it is showing that. So here, when it says Chulam Kuntu, which means in all activities. So like normally you say activities such as, means, going, means either going somewhere or like just going, or just going around, leisurely going around, or sleeping, or staying, sitting. So these kind of activities, or one could also take it in the activity of the body, speech, and mind. So basically in all forms of activity, and then one must always examine. One must always be mindful, examining, and examining one's mental continuum. Always examining, and then Dajin Marung Shivana. And as soon as and afflictive emotions, which the reason is these afflictive emotions, they harm oneself and others. So they are not needed. Therefore, one has to eradicate them, eliminate them. That is why we need to be mindful all the time, seeing when they arise. And here, it is saying that we have to forcefully confront them as soon as they arise. Because once, if we are not able to pinpoint them when they arise straight away, and then we will these will arise in us, and then through time they become more difficult for us to overcome. Like for example, again, for example, habit of smoking. When you first smoke, it is very easy to cut yourself from smoking. If you are able to straight away say smoking is not good, injurious, unnecessary expenditure, not good for your health, not good for others, surroundings, then all these reasoning, then very easy to cut. But once you are habituated to smoking, then it's very difficult. Even with all these kind of understanding, you might think a lot of people know it is not good for them, but because it has become such a habit, it's very difficult for them to give up or overcome. You see these cigarette packets, right? So scary pictures on them. People with no mouth, no all this, cancer, and then it says injurious to health, and then all this cancer, like this, so very scary. But yet, people smoke. They buy the very picture, looking at it only, they smoke because so habituated, unable to give up. So like this, so same way, once we become habituated to these mental afflictions, then very difficult to overcome them, very difficult to give up. So therefore, the minute they arise, it says one must be able, one must apply antidote to overcome them. And how can one, recognize them straight away as soon as they arise, is by being mindful all the time. So that is why. So all the time being mindful. So here, like the again in the 37 practices of bodhisattva, it is said that ranki shedang dao matulna chirol dao tulsing pelwanjur teshir jamdan hingje mapongki rangju do jasilale. So mental afflictions such as anger or hatred, so if one doesn't examine them carefully, and if one tries to feed them more by when they arise, then you try to, instead of trying to destroy them, you try to overcome your enemy externally. Then the more you try that, the more the enemy will grow. First one person may be your enemy, or one who you don't like. Then you create some harm to that person through your dislike. Then that person has its own family or friends. So all those become your enemies or people. So that way, it from one it increased to many. So, and those people will have their near and dear ones. So all of that become your enemy. So that way it only increases itself. So that way it is not the right way of tackling such emotions. So rather it says applying loving kindness, compassion, and turning the mind inward, rather than outward, trying to defeat this very afflictive emotions of hatred, etc. And then through the antidote of loving kindness, compassion, then once you defeat that, then all external, becomes neutralized. There's no more enemy when you destroy the root cause of creating these enemies. So that is one. Then again, it says that nyomong komna nyembu dokawe tenshi chibu nyembu tenshi chibu nyembu chenzung chasu nyomong tangbo chimata murunjum sheba jasenani. So again, the other way is, or another way is, if, as I explained, if we get too used to these afflictive emotions, then it is very difficult to overcome them. So with the with the the awareness and mindfulness, then with the tool, or the with the weapon of awareness and mindfulness, then we destroy these afflictive emotions as soon as they arise, and that is the most most appropriate time that one can destroy them, when it just arises, when you are not habituated to it. And then in the mind training, like the 7-point mind training, then there is it says yul sum tuk sum getza sum. So it says the 3 objects, 3 poisons, and 3 seeds of virtue. So by applying such a method, so here what it means is the 3 objects are like objects that develop attraction in you, the afflictive emotion of attraction, and then the objects that develop dislike in you, and then the neutral objects, the objects that is neutral to you, so so that way. And then through this, then what happens is through the objects such as which attract you, and then it develops like mental affliction such as desire in you, desire. And then through objects such as which create dislike in you, then it develops mental affliction such as hatred, etc. And then the neutral objects develop like ignorance. So now then how do we convert that into seed of virtue? So the method is, when we if we are mindful, then when we are mindful, the minute we realize that we have developed some kind of desire to something, so we recognize that this is so if we don't recognize, we will go on feeding this desire, and then get more and more and more, and we will never be able to completely fulfill it. Like it says, it is like drinking salt water. So the more we drink, the more thirsty we feel, and then gradually it will kill you, so the more we feed on these desire, the more it becomes, and then more suffering. So that is not the way. So here, the minute we recognize this, then what we have to do here is the training the mind, seeing, recognizing, oh, I've developed this desire, and this is the root cause of our suffering. So therefore, and all mother sentient beings with such afflictive emotions are suffering, have been suffering from countless lifetimes to now, and still suffering. So may all their such desire, the root cause of sufferings, may all that absorb into this very desire that one has developed at the moment, and may it dissolve into this, and may it completely erase. So like this, so this kind of practice, then though desire first arise, then with your mindfulness, the weapon of mindfulness, then you are able to tackle it, not get habituated, but rather able to destroy that through the method of loving kindness, compassion for the mother sentient beings. So it becomes a seed of virtue. So in the same way, the hatred, ignorance, etc. in the same way. So if I go again and again, I think we will run out of time. So not enough time, but it is the same. You apply same way. So that is how we transform the the 3 poisons into the 3 seeds of virtue. So that is how we practice. So here, so with this, then the third verse is over. Now the fourth. Yeah. So, for example, if a being has strong kind of attachment and these kind of afflictions, then what happens is first of all, it makes the person unhappy with these kind of afflictions, and then that will label the person as a bad person. Nobody likes a person who has strong ego, strong jealousy, strong hatred. That kind of a character person, nobody will really appreciate, right? So the person gets characterized as a negative person, a bad person. So number one, harm. Then second, they lose the sense of judgment of good and bad action. Because so much confusion of these afflictions, and then they lose the judgment of what is right and what is wrong. So that is number two. And then also, that through these influence of these afflictions, then the action becomes negative, and through these actions then create lots of negative karma, and through these negative karma then one experiences greater suffering, such as rebirth in lower realms, and also like we can see very much, even if you don't want to go into rebirth and all that, then practically also lots of creates negative consequences, right? So karmic, as I said earlier, karmic cause and effect. So therefore, so having these kind of afflictive emotions, the ego, so it's no good. So we must straight away tackle them the minute they arise. We must recognize them and tackle them and destroy them. And that is the best opportunity that we will have at that time when it just arises. Then now the fourth, it says Rangjin Ngempe Semjene Digduk Chapu Nön Tongse Rinchen Tertang Trebajin Nyebar Kawi Jinzin Sho. So when I see beings with unwholesome nature, afflicted with grave sins and suffering, like finding precious treasures, may I dearly cherish them as if they are hard to find. So here, this verse, kind of particularly emphasizes for the practitioners of bodhicitta and the important, principle of having a special concern for the underprivileged and the, and those who are suffering, etc. So your compassion should be even greater. So these are practices of compassion, etc. So here, Rangjin Ngempe Semje. So Rangjin Ngempa means those beings who have negative character, negative character, negative quality like this. So some are there, who, they manifest very negative character, naturally, very talented in this, right? So so always doing negative things, always saying negative things, always creating negative vibes, so these kind of people, it's saying. So so here so so here it says that so for such, so it categorizes basically beings in 3 kinds here. So one kind of beings is such, and then the second, it says digba, beings who through through negative action then bring about great sufferings onto themselves, who have created lots of, how do you say, non-virtuous actions. Those who create lots of non-virtuous action, and through that then create lots of negative karma. So that is second kind of being. And then the third kind of being is those who are suffering greatly, through like sickness, or through various sufferings, day to day, going through lots of suffering. So these kind of very poor, suffering, etc. So these kind of beings. So it characterizes. So it says all these kind of beings going through such. Then one must look upon them as a great treasure for one's own, development. Why? Because if, as I said, if there was nobody to, point out your uh, negative qualities by, irritating you, by, poking you on all the, wrong parts of you, then, there is no kind of discovery of your, the negative qualities. So such people are very precious to us, because they are the source to our discovery of these, inferior qualities within us or negative qualities. So they are very precious, number one. Then also like the, beings who, have done many, negative things, then they are suffering so much. So they give you the platform of developing loving kindness, compassion. They give you the platform of developing this very important nature, or the quality which is so essential to your happiness and others' happiness, ultimately enlightenment. So therefore, without the source on who one can practice, then one will not have the opportunity. So they become like a source on which one can practice and develop these qualities. So they are very precious to one. And then those who are, going through, difficulties, then they are like the source for one's, practice. Like for example, if there is no poor, then who do where do you practice your generosity? So and then when there's no, people to practice your patience, who do you practice your patience with? So all of them become your source of practice. So those who are sick, then you can, service to them through, uh, uh, yourself being there to help, or through other means, of supporting those who support them. So that way, one can benefit. So that way, it gives you so many opportunities to develop as a human being, as a being yourself, developing your these innate qualities. So that is why they're very important. Then, like again, the Nagarjuna says, that Dani Tani Jigden di Lame Changchup Top Dona, Te Tsawa Changchup Sem, Riwang Jabotar Den Tang, Cho Te Tugbe, Hingje Tang, Ni Lamide, Ishella. So if one wishes to attain enlightenment, then it is, most, important to develop loving kindness, compassion, and that one can, develop that through, the beings, through the helping other beings, then that is possible. If not, then who do you practice on? So therefore, it is very important. So that way. Then in the the bodhisattvas practice, it says, in the middle of a crowd of people, someone reveals your hidden faults and abuses you for them. To see him as a spiritual friend and to bow with respect is the practice of a bodhisattva. And so this is also the same. As I told you, they are the source through which one discovers one's own negative qualities. So therefore, one respects them. And so that is that. Then on the path to practicing bodhicitta, the good natured beings are of not much help, to changing your negative qualities, which are the source to your suffering till now. But on the other hand, the beings of negative qualities, beings of great non-virtuous acts, acts and beings with great suffering are the great source for your practice and development of your virtue. They are like a wish-fulfilling treasure that you have found and which is so difficult to find. So you should greatly cherish it. So here in this stanza, it says that. So like, the great master Atisha, it is said that he had a student, a sponsor, a student who, was really, negative character, always used to do the wrong things, say the wrong things, and always, create problems. Then, one king told the great master Atisha that, why don't we, kind of stop him from coming, or, stop his, these, from visiting and all like this, why don't we do that? And then Atisha said, oh, no, he's very important. He's my guru of my practice of patience. So he's most important. We cannot do that. He's very important. He's very precious. So like that. So we have to practice this way. We have to see this way. So that is the fourth stanza. Now the fifth stanza is, or the fifth verse. It says, "Dala jenchi tadoki shikur laso mirikbi chonka ranki lembatang jalka shenla bulwarsho." So this verse explains the importance of cultivating patience and endurance, etc., in the face of challenges, coming from others. So this is more difficult than the precious. This is more difficult than the previous practice. Oh, I forgot to read the English. So yeah, so this stanza says that when others out of jealousy wrongly disparage and slander me, etc., may I take upon myself the defeat and respectfully offer victory to others of them. So here now, like I said, Nagarjuna said, may all the the effects of my virtue ripen upon others. May all the effects of the other sentient beings, non-virtue, ripen upon me. So such practices. So like that. So also again, in the bodhisattvas practice, it says that for bodhisattvas who seek a wealth of virtue, every harm perpetrator is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without feeling irritation to all, to cultivate patience is the practice of a bodhisattva. So here, it is very important to train one's mind in this way. So when such afflictive emotions arise, like jealousy, etc., then somebody who who creates shekur here, shekur means a person who, through jealousy, etc., then kind of harms you through she means sheshetangwa, which means yelling at you, like yelling at you, or kurwa means like criticizing you, so sheshetang means like yelling at you is more like directly, in front of you, yelling at you, and criticizing you mostly behind you, criticizing you, so these kind of acts, if one does such acts, through their jealousy and etc., then not to react to that, and and to chonka rangi means, and to take all those onto oneself, the taking all those faults onto oneself, and giving the benefit of all that to the others. So instead of reacting by trying to prove them wrong, and then saying, oh, I am right, you are wrong, and then trying to make it known to everybody like this. So instead of doing this, so this is the, how normal world functions, right? So instead of doing that, as a practitioner of the bodhisattvas path, as a practitioner of the mind training, practice, then one must change that attitude and able to absorb all those, all those kind of, misfortunes, or these kind of things brought onto oneself, and able to absorb that and not get affected by them. So that is how one practices here. Now, to this, there might be, like, not there might be, there is many, questions or doubts raised. For example, to this, there is some, people who, I think, like, should we accept such act of unjust, and let such unjust act go unpunished? Then isn't this wrong way of practicing, of patience? Isn't such patience also the, or also to be blamed along with the one who creates the negative act, because you are kind of giving them the opportunity to do this, and continue with this. So like this. So there are many doubts like this. So to this, then we have to act with wisdom. That is very important. Here we are not saying support the negative actions and turn a blind eye to it. So we are not saying that. Here we have to judge with an open, compassionate mind, with wisdom, free of your own afflictive emotions taking over. That's very important. Seeing the the perpetrator as a sentient being, overwhelmed by their own afflictions, and creating very negative karma. So you genuinely want to help such helpless beings through wisdom and kindness, not through the same action that the person is displaying. If you are not careful, then even you will be the same as the person, though you think you are not. If you act in the same way, under the influence of the afflictions, then even though you might be thinking you are trying to, help the other, but then, it becomes the same. Now, for example, this is not a very good example to give, because I know I might get into trouble, but then, things like this make it most clear, right? So let me say it, that I very much respect and, and stand for the equality of, gender equality. Male, female are perfectly equal. Like, the the great master, the great enlightened Tara, in one of our lifetimes said, that this male, female, everything is an illusion, is a mental fabrication. So all this is, male greater than female is just a mind. It's nothing more than that. So one must be free of this, and so like that. So all this is that. So now, of course, with such, ancient or old society, with these kind of things, then many, somehow male become the dominant, and became quite kind of a male, kind of oriented things, and then this, habit, not very good habit, very bad habit, continued, and then became male chauvinist, we call them, right? So became like this. Then gradually, as the world become more, developed, and then the female, of course, cannot take this, because this is not only female, but anyone who has the wisdom, can understand that this is not right. So, because male, female, after all, is the same, so equal. So then, then they start to, kind of, how to say, put forth this problem. And then, which is very good. I really respect this. To have equality, very important. Everyone should be equal. But then what happened is sometimes it becomes so much that they become feminist, too much feminist. Then male chauvinist and feminist become the same, First, the male chauvinist is very bad, that's definitely. But then you have to counter attack that with, reason, with the equality, But if you become a feminist and then start attacking the, the how to say, the male chauvinist, then you are becoming same as the extreme, too extreme. And so you are not the middle path, you become the extreme. I'm not saying everybody like that, but there are many like this, and then they are so upset, so agitated, so easy to get hurt, so easy to, kind of, how do you say, explode, so that is, so both ways I'm talking, male also same, female also same, when you become too much, inclined to, sides, then it becomes like this, two sides. So that is not good. So that is what here, we have to be in the, with wise becoming, we have to be wise, we have to be, tackle things with wisdom. So that is very important. So right, wrong depend on, the our wisdom, the righteousness, the openness, the open mind. So that is very important. And then of course, other things are like vegetarian, non-vegetarian. This is also the same. Vegetarian, very good. I really respect. I really support. But then, when it becomes too much extreme to one, then you start looking down on someone, and then creating problem, anger, and all like this. Then it becomes a source of one's afflictive emotions to arise, and that harms oneself and others. So it is not a source of, peace, not source of compassion, not source of, happiness. So therefore we have to be very, wise, very open. So with wisdom. So method with wisdom is very important. Method lacking wisdom then is no good. Then wisdom also without method is just, not really genuine wisdom. One cannot. So the union of method and wisdom is very important. So yeah, so with this example, I hope you understand. So definitely, I'm not in the extreme. Okay, I'm very in the middle. I support both. I think both is very, equally, perfectly equal. So we all have this Buddha nature. There's no difference in our Buddha nature. There's no male and female. So the, all right from the sentient beings like animals, to the so-called the spirits, to the humans, to the gods, all our human nature or Buddha nature is equal, same, no difference. So there's no difference in us. So therefore, yeah. So now the sixth. Okay. Now the sixth verse. It says, Kangla Daki Pentapi Rewa Chewa Kangshiki Shindu Miri Nushenang Shinyan Tamper Tawarshu. Even if someone that I benefited and had great hope in that person gravely mistreat and cause harm to me, may I view him as a sublime teacher. So here in this stanza or the verse, it explains a particular the perspective where generally when we do good to someone, then we expect the same in return. But when such is not returned, then how do we overcome this disappointment? So how do we how do we train our mind to look into these, or develop our practice in these situations? And so it talks about this. So here then we train ourselves to learn forgiveness and cultivate the act of benefiting others without any expectation in return, which diminishes the great act of benefiting others with the attachment of acknowledging or acknowledgement of return, the same favor in return. If we are able to perform any act of generosity or helping others in any way without any expectations in return, then that kind of an act is most pure, and it gives us great sense of accomplishment and peace. Usually, when someone who you don't like or someone who don't know you hurts you, you will not be so upset. But because someone who you don't know say something, you might think, this person doesn't know me. So what he says, it really, doesn't bother me because he doesn't know me. Then someone who really you don't like, definitely, when you expect such people to, say something like that. You will not expect your, people who don't like you to say nice things to you, right? So when they say such things, you will not take it seriously. These people say like this, right? So it really doesn't get to you too much. It cannot really hurt you too much. But someone who you have great sense of, kind of closeness, confidence, or trust that such a person will come forth to help you in difficult times, since you have helped them so much in the past, etc. So in such a case, then such a person, when doesn't act in the same way in return, then you get very hurt, because of your this expectation. Then when they don't do the same to you, then you will start counting and have all the list of what you have done, and then very upset. You cannot have a good sleep, and then when you see such people, you're unhappy. Then you go around telling other people that such person is of such bad quality, such a person like this. So it makes you miserable, mentally and physically, very unhappy like this. So in such a case, then you should see, it says you should see these person as a great teacher, because your act of generosity with such attachment is really not a genuine act of generosity. It is like a business, So when you do something for somebody, if you're unable to do with, kind of complete let go of what you do, then it is not real, kind of action of doing. If you are expecting the same in return, then it is more like a business, or it is more like installment, right? Loan. You do something for someone, then you are expecting something. So it is not really act of any generosity or anything like that. So it is wrong. So therefore, such people clearly point your mistake, show you, that your act of this generosity, which till now you thought it was an act of generosity, which you thought that you were doing something positive, benefiting, it really isn't. It has a deep root of, this defect. So they are pointing out this. So they become like a teacher to you. So it opens your eye to your mistakes and helps you to overcome these mistakes. So, like, that is why, when, for example, when you give something to someone, or when you, sponsor something, it is very important to do it genuinely without any expectation. And when you are able to do that, what happens? You are more happy, because then you are not after how they use my, how do you say, what I, offer them, how they use, what they are doing, and then after that, then each and everything that doesn't coincide with your thinking, then you are upset easily. And then maybe they need to utilize that for certain way to help in certain other way. But you have, you don't understand that, then it creates misunderstanding in you, and your act of such, noble act becomes, corrupted with then more anger, more hatred, more like this. So it is corrupted. But on the other hand, when you give something, if you think, I've given now, so whatever they do, whatever they do may really benefit them. From my side, I've given them 100% now, no more attachment. Then, no matter what they do, you are happy. You are completely satisfied with your action of generosity or giving. After that, then that action, the fulfillment of your positive action of generosity never loses. No matter what happens after that, you will always be filled with this, sense of satisfaction, with peace. So that is great. So that way, it's uncorrupted. Then other examples are like, why do we, like those Buddhists, you all know, we make offering of the water, on our altar every day in the morning, and then throw it in the evening, and then again tomorrow morning we offer water. So why offering water? So it's the same example. Water is the most precious to us. In order to survive, we need water. But water, we don't have any attachment to water. We can offer in the morning, and in the evening when we, throw the water, we have no attachment to it. We can throw it with no kind of strings attached to it. Imagine if we offer some, there are some, practitioners who do these wrathful practices, and then they, offer like, wine and all these kind of things, alcohol like this, and then I see, they after offering for how many days, then they make sure to keep those, bottles, expensive wines, so that they can drink themselves later on. So attachment. You offer but not really offer. You buy the best wine, saying that you're going to offer to Mahakala, but actually is not offering to Mahakala. Mahakala is the, is the excuse you have, but actually is to offer yourself. At the end of the offering, then you drink yourself. So like this, so it's corrupted. Your this offering corrupted by your, this self attachment of, these. So therefore, when you do any giving act of, generosity, act of any of these, paramitas, it has to be done genuinely, completely. So that way, then it is genuine. Then you really accumulate enormous merit. Then it is really beneficial for both sides. So that is very important. So here, it kind of states this. So here in the, again, in the bodhisattvas, practice, it says, 37 practice of bodhisattva, it says, if someone who you cherish as dearly as your own child take you for an enemy, then like a mother whose child is sick, to love that person even more is the practice of a bodhisattva. So a mother's love to a child is one way. There's no kind of in return. So when the child acts not very nicely, the mother will not have any grudge for all her love and kindness that she has showered till now. There's no kind of expectation. So she will not be hurt. She will develop even more loving kindness, compassion towards the child who has such nature, because she will see like a sick person, like that. So this is the sixth stanza. Now the seventh is it says Dorna ngutan jubai pende manam kunlambul mai nudan dunghal kun sangwi dala lempersho. Yeah. So now here it says, now this stanza emphasizes the practice of the tong-len, the tong-len practice, give and take practice, the main practice. So this is the main way of all these practices. The word here, secretly or discreetly, it is really referring to the practice of giving and taking. Here, even in the Chunjuk this word comes. So why secretly or discreetly? Because such practice, if not careful, and then kind of one develops kind of ego, because then I'm doing so much for others. I'm able to kind of develop like this kind of humility. Then I'm able to so like this. So these kind of things one might develop. These kind of it might feed to your these afflictions, the defilements. So therefore it says one must practice secretly, so no one knows, so that nobody will pass comments on you saying that, oh, you're such a great master, or great practitioner, you don't even care for yourself, you can take the sufferings of all others. So when there's no like this, then you are able to check yourself, you don't get carried away. Otherwise, when too many people saying, oh, you're doing well, oh, you have such great compassion, you have such, you can fathom such great sufferings of others like this, then you get carried away sometimes, not careful. So therefore, in a way, secret means that any practice, actually, especially such practice, we must do it in secrecy, not boasting around, not showing people you're doing practice. A genuine practitioner looks like an ordinary person, just normal, but internally always practicing. So great practitioners like that. Those who act like great practitioner, different from other people, it is a sign that it's a doubt of how their practice is going, because those then too much. If there's too much flair, then like there's a saying in English, empty vessels make a lot of noise, right? So when it's empty, it makes lots of noise, but when it's completely full, it doesn't make noise, right? So it should be like that. Our practitioner should be like this. So here, so that way. So this kind of practice of offering benefits and happiness to others and taking suffering and harm of others onto oneself is the main practice of the Kadampa tradition. It is called the tong-len practice. So here the author, the great master says, that whether it is it is practiced in reality or in reality by really physically exchanging or practiced mentally. So physically, truly they're practicing that way, or mentally, like giving and taking through meditation practice like this, giving and taking through the breath. Example, through the breath we do the practice. So that kind of visualization practice to benefit others directly or indirectly is the practice of a tong-len, or sending and taking practice. So that is what it means by directly or indirectly. Now, for example, again, Shantideva says, "Kanshi data jenamni nyudu chaparan debate data jendu jejawa sanvi tamba chebarsha." In the Junju, Shantideva says. So those who wish to benefit and liberate oneself and others, then it is most important to do practices such as these, give and take practice, tong-len practice, and this is done in secrecy or with with what is it? Yeah, I forgot the word that they use here. With discreetly, so practice discreetly or with secrecy. So that is how it's practiced. And then again in the mind training, the 7.9 training, it says, tong-len nipo pelmar chang tenyi lungla chunde sha. So sending and taking should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath, so that is mentally practicing, so giving all your happiness, well-being to others when you breathe out, and then taking in all the sufferings and misfortune of others onto yourself through your breath coming in. So this way exchanging, so that is mentally doing such practice. So practically and mentally doing these practice. So tong-len practice. So this is the main practice of this. So now, okay. Now the next eighth is the eighth stanza, right? Teda kunjang shujeji topitime mabashing chukun jumar shibilu sheme chingwa letonsho. So by all these aspirations remaining undefiled by the 8 worldly concerns, and by recognizing all phenomena as illusion, may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the bondage. So in this stanza, or in this verse, the last 2 lines, as I told you, present the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the practice of emptiness. Then, the also known as the ultimate awakening mind. So that is the last 2 stanza, which says, that by recognizing all phenomena as illusion, may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the bondage. So this is the ultimate bodhicitta. Now here, then the first 2 lines emphasize on the importance of your motivation when you engage in the practices such as the tong-len, etc. There is a possibility that sometimes these practices could be spoiled by wrong motivation, thinking that people will, kind of respect me. I'll be a great meditator. I'm going to be famous, etc. So if these motivations become part of your practice, and then it becomes inappropriate practice. So one should guard against these kind of motivations, which creep in and kind of spoils the great practice. Here it says the 8 worldly dharma. So the 8 worldly dharmas corrupt our genuine practice. So 8 worldly dharmas, such as the wish for gain, and not wish for loss, then wish for the praises, and not wishing for slander, wishing for the pleasure, not wishing for pain, wishing for pleasing speeches, not wishing for unpleasant speeches, etc. So these 8 dharma is known as the worldly dharma. So if you associate any practice with these 8, then it becomes corrupted practice. It doesn't become a pure practice. So therefore it says all those previous practices that we have gone through, so all those must be done genuinely, purely, without being corrupted by these 8 worldly dharmas. So now here, then, so that is the the how we kind of antidote for the previous practice relatively, is by being mindful and making sure that your practice not corrupted by these, and if kind of the defilement of such arise, then straight away applying antidote to them. So that is how we do. But the best antidote is said to be the ultimate bodhicitta, or the emptiness. So through the practice of the emptiness, then it is the true way of overcoming all this, the genuine antidote. So now here it says that chukun jumar shibilu. So by recognizing all phenomena as illusion, may I, without clinging and attachment, be liberated from the bondage. So here, I thought, since maybe we are a little over time, but I think it's very important, so I will just try to complete about this ultimate bodhicitta practice. So it is more clearer in the the how to say, the 7-point mind training. there's certain the stanza there. So I quote from there, and I explain to you, so it will help you to understand these two lines more clearer. So like it says, that chunam milam tabur sam maji ribishelaje nyembo nijang rangsar tol ngo kunji nganglaja tunsam jumi jebursha. So which means regarding all dharma as dreams, examine the nature of unborn awareness, self-liberation, even the antidote, rest in the nature of alaya, the essence. In post-meditation, be a child of illusion. So this stanza, I would like to explain to you a little bit, which makes it clear how we practice. Now, the first, which says, regarding all dharma as dreams. This means that all the external and internal compounded dharmas, like the universe, beings, etc., are a mere illusion of the mind. It has no true substantial existence, like the experience of your dream. So now, His Holiness Dalai Lama always says, that even the scientists, now discovering, that all the, the so-called, the matters, what appear to us externally is not the reality. It is just a mere appearance. That's not the reality. When they really examine, it is free of such, independent kind of solid existence of any kind. So the cognitive science, in the cognitive science, the scientists are now discovering this. So this is already mentioned here, by Buddha. So like this, so it is like a dream. It is a mere illusion, it says. So here we do a little analytical meditation on this and rest on this very understanding. So we try to analyze this. That every kind of compounded matter is a a kind of a combination of many things. Relative, dependent thing, and there's no independent existence. Everything. So it is empty of any kind of a true existence by itself independently. So therefore, so like an illusion, like an illusion, it is just like an illusion. So we kind of analytically, kind of examine this and then rest in this thought for a while. Then when you do that, and then if you think the mind itself, so is truly existent or not, so if you have this doubt, then in that case, is the mind itself, truly existent or not? Then the next, the sentence which says that examine the nature of unborn awareness. So it says that. So this means that if you examine and investigate the nature of one's mind, you will find that it is free of any characteristics like physical shape, color, etc. If you examine the mind, the mind, what color it is, you will not find any particular color. If you try to examine the shape of the mind, what shape, square, round, all this, there's no, you will not be able to pinpoint any kind of shape like that. So then with this, then we can conclude that it is unborn. So it is unborn. At this moment, then it does not exist, neither the mind at this moment does not exist neither inside of your body nor outside of your physical body. So if you examine the mind, where does it exist? Is it in your brain? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your legs? Is it outside of you? Is it inside of you? So if you examine, you will not be able to pinpoint where exactly. So like this. And then finally, it has no place to which it goes or arises or ceases. So when it is, not, when it's not born, when it doesn't exist, then it doesn't, cease also. So that way. So it can be concluded that it is free from the three existence of birth, existence, and cessation. Therefore, with such analyzing, we can see that it is from, it is free of any true existence in this way, through analyzing. Now, at this point, then if you think that, then our physical body and the mind is all empty. If it is empty, then there is no kind of result or any benefit or harm. So if you think like this, then it clearly states, or that in the next line, it says that self-liberation, even the antidote. Now, when it says this, what it means is the antidote to this is by observing the very nature or essence of this very non-existing thought or inclination that has arisen. It by itself, by doing that, then it by itself liberates without any reference point. When you rest on this. At this, then you just rest in this state, free of any reference. So this is how one does analytical meditation as shown in the sacred instructions. Now the next, it says, that rest in the nature of alaya, the essence. So here it is not analytical, but rather practically showing the method of placement meditation. So we say chegom and jogom. Chegom is analytical, and jogom is placement meditation. So here is the jogom. So now we free ourselves from all the thought process of conceptualizing, like projecting and gathering of thoughts through the 7 collections of consciousness, and rest in the very nature of dharmata, which is free from all conceptualization, which has the character of clarity and non-conceptualization, also known as the Buddha nature. In brief, not going after thoughts and maintaining to rest on the nature of mind, which is with clarity and free from conceptualization. So this is the practice of placement and meditation. Now, in this, in the post meditation, now this is the placement meditation. Now, post meditation, then the next line says, in the post meditation period, be a child of illusion. So here, this means that in the post meditation period, or after the meditation session, then one must try to maintain the experience acquired through the meditation in one's conduct of life, in every conduct of life, or every how to say, you must live it, so that is important. So the practice that you have achieved, then one does that by understanding and seeing all phenomena one experiences, like the outer universe, the inner beings, etc., as a mere illusion, like in a dream. No substantial reality in any, but a mere experience of relative level. So we learn to view in this way in every conduct of our life at all times. And so this is, carrying on the practice through our life, through our day to day. life. So whatever you do, of course we do everything, but we see or we recognize the reality of it, and then that is how we adapt to the practice, and the practice becomes one with you. And so like this, then we do the practice of the ultimate bodhicitta. And so with this, then the relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta both form of practice, then we understand. So with this, then we have completed the 8 verses of the the tong-len, I mean the mind training by Geshe Langri Thangpa. So hopefully, I was able to make some kind of clarity in your understanding of the tong-len practice, and I sincerely hope that we can all cultivate this practice in our day-to-day life. As I said, it is not very long, so it is very easy to memorize them. Most of the masters, kind of take this practice as their day-to-day life practice and recite it every morning in their daily practice. And then whenever in their day-to-day life, try to reflect on these, kind of understandings and trying to, kind of cultivate these qualities and, exchange this strong attachment of self with the, sense of benefit to others. So that is very important. This practice is like a base for our success in our practice. So these are very important. So hopefully, I am able to make it somewhat, clear to you. And since we have run out of time, so there's no time for question answer today. But if there's question and answers, then maybe you can send to the centers, the question answers, and then accordingly I will see, and if I can reply to the answers, I will, and if not, then I will see when I can, and then maybe we can have a question answer session again, or maybe I will reply back to the centers, and then they will hand over the answers to you. So like this, but of course, all question answers just my point of view, so it is not kind of a final, so we all as human beings have the quality of intelligence, and we should use this and and be able to see and what is right, what is wrong, and act accordingly. Just because somebody says doesn't mean it is the right. So we have to use our intelligence, so that we, and I know all of you, are now have been devoted to the, following the right path, which is, towards the, turning the mind to benefit others and reduce self attachment, strong attachments, and all this. So I'm sure, whatever reflections you have on, things, I'm sure, you have a strong grasp of the, the answer to yourself. Most of the time we ask questions just like that, and then becomes a question. But if we really go deep into the question and think clearly, give some time and reflect clearly, most of the time we have the answer to ourselves, so that is the case most of the time, so I'm sure you have the answer to yourself, but of course you can send the question and I'll be more than happy to try and answer to your questions. Okay, so I think we conclude here because it might be too late for some people. Okay, so I would like to dedicate the merit for all mother sentient beings. 소남디 탐지 지바니 톰네니베 다남 팜진 제가나지 발락투바이 시베 졸렌도 와쇼 진난데와 소소나 판데만가 차버쇼 동남봉을 다기 코로와 동을 제자소 동보라쇼. Yeah. Okay. Thank you to all the translators for helping me out.